Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to today's webinar, Exploring On-Campus Childcare Solutions, Head Start and Community College Partnerships, co-hosted by the Association of Community College Trustees and the National Head Start Association, and made possible by ECMC Foundation and Selding Herring Smith Foundation. We're thrilled to have you join us today. My name is Carrie Warwick-Smith, and I'm Vice President, Public Policy with ACCT. Today, we will be recording the webinar and making materials available afterwards. If you have any questions, please use the chat box to communicate with presenters. And if you have any technical difficulties, please message me directly or my colleague, Sean Robbins. Today, we have a packed agenda, and we're trying to make sure that we're able to share much content and many perspectives with you. We'll start with a welcome from Jacob Frere, head of the ECMC Foundation. Next, we'll move into a research overview from Therese Ahrich-Summer. And then we'll have a panel that brings together the Association of Community College Trustees, the National Head Start Association, as well as a student parent currently participating in a Head Start center on a college campus. And at the end, we'll have closing remarks from Ji-Hae Lee, CEO of ACCT. Before I turn it over to Jacob, I'd like to share just a quick map of the country with all of you that shows the attendees for today. We're thrilled to have nearly 600 folks from Head Start centers, community college campuses, funders, reporters, Capitol Hill staff, and many others across the country who are interested in supporting student parents and their students and their young students in their quest for education and childcare. And so as you can see, we have representatives from nearly every state who are interested in learning more about this topic. So with that, I'd like to turn it over to Jacob Frere, who is the very new CEO of the ECMC Foundation, who recently joined them from the University of Texas, El Paso, and is no stranger to community colleges as he formerly led the Texas Association of Community Colleges. Jacob?
ECMC Foundation is a proud member of the ECMC family and one of the funders of the Kids on Campus project. As foundation president, I am pleased with the attention this partnership has received from the media, from esteemed policymakers and colleagues in the field. Thank you for joining us today and your interest in new models for serving underserved students in post-secondary education. As a national higher education funder focused on systemic change, ECMC Foundation is dedicated to supporting programs that intentionally serve students of color, first-generation students, adult learners, single mother students, and student parents. These students traditionally have not been well served by institutions of higher education, and we're seeking to change that. ECMC's Foundation's new strategic framework includes 3 core strategies: removing barriers to post-secondary completion, building capacity among organizations, institutions, and systems, and transforming the post-secondary ecosystem. Towards these ends, we launched 5 key initiatives, including the Single Mother Student Success Initiative. This initiative is designed to support single mother students through college completion. Since our initial investment in 2016, our focus on single mother students' grant portfolio has laid the groundwork for the needed systemic change. We know the completion rate for single mothers are low, yet improving. In 2019, the National Center for Education Statistics found that only 12% of single mothers earn an associate's degree within 6 years of enrolling at community college. That's nearly double the rate of 7% that was reported in 2011. Still, we must do better. While single mothers are less likely than other women to hold a post-secondary credential, they are more likely than other women to have started and not finished a degree, indicating that additional support can make a measurable difference. We know that 44% of single mother students attend community colleges. The Single Mother Student Success Initiative aims to increase the share of single mother students who attain an associate's degree within 6 years and enrolling at community college to 25%. To be clear, Single mother students are talented and have high aspirations for a college degree. It is time for us to change higher education policies and practice to meet those aspirations. We recognize that reforms to higher education require collaboration across multiple sectors and systems. This project does just that by fostering collaboration between two major organizations representing the leaders at community colleges and Head Starts across our great nation. This partnership is a win-win for all involved. We know that access to quality childcare is a major barrier to single mother students. Indeed, the cost of childcare is more expensive than the cost of tuition in many states. We believe this project has the potential to transform the post-secondary ecosystem for student parents. Investment in single mothers students benefit all of us and help ensure the future health and well-being of the next generation. In closing, ensuring that single mothers achieve their post-secondary dreams will also make sure that we make measurable progress on gender equity, not just in higher education, but across society as a whole, reducing poverty and boosting economic mobility among these talented women. It is now my great pleasure to introduce Dr. Therese Eldridge Summer. Dr. Summer is professor at Northwestern University, where the past 15 years, she and her team have evaluated the effectiveness of interventions across our country designed to improve educational and economic ability of parents and children at the same time. She also is co-founder and directs the Northwestern Two-Generation Research Initiative. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jacob. It's really an honor to be here with experts across this nation and in this webinar who focus on the education of either adults or children. Today, what I'm going to focus on, as Jacob has already highlighted, are educational investments in student parents and their children. I like to think of this as more of 1 + 1 = 3, so more than doubling the return on investment in 2 generations. So we all here today know the incredible benefits of higher education. We know that investing in post-secondary degrees and certificates have a much higher return than even traditional investments like stocks, treasury bonds, etc. But what I'm going to focus on today in the next slide is about the importance of, next slide, Sean, of thinking about education in terms of family systems. And I'm going to talk about the empirical evidence of what we know. First and foremost, we know that education is the strongest predictor of income in households. We also know that a parent's education and income are significantly linked to children's own educational achievement. We also know that when you invest in children when they're young, you get greater returns than when you invest when they're older. And together, this tells us that high quality intensive investments in parents' education and children's education lead to upward social mobility. So traditionally, as we all know, schools for kids and schools for adults are separate and siloed, both by funding and by service delivery. But we know that we're likely to get greater returns when this kind of programming is both coordinated and the funding is braided. And part of this reflects a theory that we know called linked lives, that changes in one generation are likely to lead to changes in another generation, whether those be positive or negative, with what we call mutual reinforcement over time. I'll give you now an example of how Head Start shows linked lives. The Head Start impact study that was a randomized control trial, we did an analysis of those data showing that parents whose children were randomly assigned to Head Start were more likely to increase their own education than parents who were not randomly assigned. We know this was actually especially true for parents who had already attempted some post-secondary education. So this tells us that how can we build on this already positive trajectory of Head Start parents and improving their own education? So what do we know about families in college today? There are about 4 million student parents. They represent about 22% of all undergraduate students. 42% of them are at community college. They're also at for-profit and private and public four-year degrees or institutions. The vast majority have preschool-age children, and 70% are mothers. And these mothers are much more likely than fathers to be single mothers. When we look at single mothers, as Jacob has already highlighted, they unfortunately are the least likely of women to attain a degree or certificate. If you look within 6 years, 28% of single mothers, while that is an improvement over time, are still much behind their peers who are not also parents. You can see here 57% of women who are non-parents achieve a certificate or degree within 6 years. So the approach today that we're thinking about with combining Head Start and community college is to really focus on children not as a barrier to parents' education and career achievement, but rather as an enormous motivator. Student parents are motivated to improve their own education, in part on behalf of their own children's futures and their family's economic mobility. So here you hear from the voice of one of the student parents we've worked with.
Looking at my kids each and every day, that's what keeps me going. I look at them and I see me when I was a kid, and I don't want them to ever go through what I went through. We're going to own our own house. My kids are going to be able to have friends over, sleepovers without having us worried about getting robbed or, anything like that. That's why I keep doing these programs.
So this parent is saying why she stays in college and persists while raising young children, earning an income, and being in school is because she wants to do this on behalf of her children. So yet we all come here today knowing at the same time childcare itself is a major barrier to student parents. Of course, this is in addition to other barriers that are financial, housing, mental health, and basic needs that over half of student parents face. And student single mothers in particular face these challenges at even higher rates. So Head Start really is a logical platform for childcare at community college. First and foremost, Head Start is a program that thinks about both adults and children at the same time. It eases many logistical burdens for parents who can drop off their children at Head Start and go to college and come back and pick them up. We also know that Head Start is an institution that most often provides a very safe and trusting environment from which parents can grow and advance their own learning. It's also a place where they create social connection and can double that connection by being both on a community college campus and within a community of student parents at Head Start. So as this parent says, it's a great opportunity and peace of mind that we have children here at Head Start. And the important point here, we've studied and worked with parents over more than a decade, and they continue to say that when they feel their children are safe, thriving, and learning, that's when they can focus on advancing their own education and their own careers for the betterment of themselves and their families. So community college plus Head Start, simply, it makes sense. Community college students' demographics are increasingly similar to Head Start parents. Nearly half of college students with children under age 6 already meet the income requirements for Head Start. And when you look at community college, 750,000 need higher education. As you'll see on this next slide, if you look at who's in Head Start today or in 2017-18, 45% of Head Start parents only have a high school degree or GED. And many of them are highly motivated to advance their careers for the reasons we've already spoken about. So the theory of change around this is quite simply, you see parents pursuing higher education while children are in Head Start. In the short term, that leads to increased education and employment for parents, better economic and psychological well-being, kids attending school, and in the longer term, improve family systems, higher income, less stress, and kids doing well in elementary school and beyond. So what is the research evidence that tells us about what happens when you combine a community college and Head Start? For the last 10 years, I have been studying a model called Career Advance in Tulsa, Oklahoma. It's an education and career training program in healthcare at a local community college combined with Head Start for children. In this case, it's co-location. It's not co-location, but coordination of services. It's also a program that does provide comprehensive family supports, including free tuition, coaching, and the traditional Head Start services. It's what we call a quasi-experimental design, where we had a matched comparison group of 300 families. And on the next slide, you'll see that for parents in 1 year of participation in Career Advance, compared to those parents who were in Head Start without Career Advance, parents had higher levels of education, greater employment in the healthcare sector for which they're trained, a stronger sense of career identity, and less material hardship and financial worry. And this just gives you an example of the differences between the two groups. In the dark blue, you see those who are the individuals who received the Career Advance program. In the light blue, those who didn't. So 61% of those who enrolled in the program got a certificate within that first year, compared to just 4% in the matched comparison group. And all of these parents were in fact motivated to have careers in the healthcare sector, but you see their difference in their ability to achieve their goals with the program. So this program not only improved parents' education and sense of financial well-being, but also their psychological well-being. It improved their optimism or sense of hopefulness about the future, their sense of self-efficacy or the belief that they could achieve the goals they've set out. And we saw no increases or decreases in perceived stress or psychological distress. And to note, for the children, what we saw is greater attendance in Head Start and less chronic absence. You know, the theory here is that children are going to show up at school when parents also need to go to school. So attendance is high for both. So this, in sum, tells us an incredible example of what happens when you coordinate Head Start and community college for individual parents and families. But I think it's also important to think, what's the benefit of this model to society? And I did an intensive cost-benefit analysis of this kind of model. It was particularly a model of a career pathway training program in a variety of sectors, including manufacturing, healthcare, et cetera, combined with Head Start services for parents. And the way we measured the outcomes was conservatively looking just at the improvement in parents' earnings over time. And you can see from this graphic here that the program basically broke even in about 5 years, but would be predicted to have 8 times the return on investment after 10 years in the program. In other words, after 10 years when the parents receive their certification or degree. So just to wrap up, I want to just mention a few other promising program and policy approaches in addition to the coordination and co-location of community college and Head Start. First, we know that anytime you simplify processes for individuals, they're more likely to do better. So for example, if the FAFSA, they're helped in filling it out, they're more likely to go to college and more likely to get higher financial aid. So if you can streamline dual eligibility for FAFSA and Head Start, we know we'd be headed in the right direction. We also, as mentioned earlier, student parents have many identities as community college students, sometimes as first-generation students, more often as students of color, and as mothers and fathers. And we know that promoting and celebrating these intersecting identities help improve the persistence in college. We also know that coaching is an incredible benefit to managing the complexities of raising children, making an income, and going to school. It's also clear today, and particularly post or during or whatever we call this with COVID, that the mental health crisis for both parents and children looms large, but we know a family-centered approach to these issues has a much greater benefit than a single generation approach. And lastly, of course, there are many ways in which student parents need support financially, whether that be student debt relief, greater financial aid packages, or reduced cost of going to college. And I'd just like to end on this last slide with an example of a different kind of approach for two generations, which is thinking about college promise scholarship programs. There are many, over 350 college promise programs throughout the nation. And there's one example and a second that's just begun in that is providing college scholarships to a youth and parent in the same family where each individual is working a low-wage job and doesn't have post-secondary education. I've spent the last 3 years studying this model in Toledo, Ohio, called Hope Toledo Promise. And we've been observing what happens when both a youth and a parent are in college at the same time. And many positive dynamics happening, mutual motivation, making decisions about where and when and how to go to college together, healthy competition to encourage grades and moving from 2-year to 4-year institutions, developing skills in writing and analytic thinking together, and supporting each other in ways that are more unique to each generation, like youth helping their parents with technology and parents helping their kids with setting calendars and schedules. And this I just mentioned as a huge untapped opportunity for using existing scholarships for two individuals within the same family and getting greater returns on a college degree by adding that with coaching and other services that make it a comprehensive family-centered approach. So thank you for this opportunity, and I really look forward to hearing the panel in the next few minutes. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Therese. Hi, everyone. Amber Angel with ECMC Foundation. I just want to thank you so much for your research and for jumping into this webinar. As not even a part of this project, but the passion of your research and of this topic is evident. So let's jump in. I'd love to just introduce myself, and then I'd like to hand it over to the panel for them to introduce themselves. Thank you for the questions too. I think, Therese, a few folks are wondering if they were going to be able to get your slides. So I defer to you, but again, yes. Amber Angel, great, with ECMC Foundation. I think I speak for everyone at ECMC Foundation and the Selden Herring Smith Foundation that we were thrilled to receive this project proposal and to fund this amazing program. So I'm really passionate about this work. Little just quick background, I was a single student parent myself. I graduated in 2019. Almost had my daughter at Los Angeles Valley College, and my water broke in my 8 a.m. math class. I'm very connected to the idea that education is the greatest disruptor of poverty. And I'm here today, and I'm grateful to be here with all of you to continue to do this work to support student parents. So with that, I'd love to pass it over to Stephanie, who is a student parent herself and will be on this panel to introduce herself.
Hi, everyone. I'm the student parent. My name is Stephanie. I have a 2-year-old daughter who is currently enrolled in a Head Start. I'm the oldest out of 3. I am also a single mom, and I will be graduating in May with my certificate in early childhood studies. So I'm excited. And yeah.
Thank you, Stephanie. Victoria? Can't hear you. Steve, you want to take it well?
Sure. Hello, everyone. I'm Steve Jersh. I'm the director of the Center for Policy and Practice here at ACCT. And the center sits between our membership and our public policy team. And what we do is we work to create solutions to challenges our members are having, and then use those to help inform better policy. And on the flip side of that, once the policy then comes down, we work with our membership to help them with implementation process.
All right, I'm going to give it another try. Can you hear me?
Can hear you now. Thanks.
Great. I'm Victoria Jones. I'm the Senior Director of Data at the National Head Start Association. I'm super excited to be a part of this project and to tell you all about it.
Thank you. All right, well, let's just jump into it. I mean, we all heard the data, but Steve and Victoria, could you just speak, like, what's the project? What's the plan? And what are some of the potential resources that you're going to create? Like, what's next?
Yeah, I'm excited to share. So this whole project was really spurred from a conversation with our friends at the Civic Mapping Initiative. And they've done some amazing work around mapping and analyzing public transit access for community college campuses. And they came to us to do a similar thing around Head Start programs. And we found broadly through that work that there was better public transit access for community colleges than Head Start sites, which led us to think about, the coordination or lack thereof between community colleges and Head Starts. So once we went down that path, we saw there was just so much alignment between our populations and their needs, but far fewer partnerships for this co-location than we had anticipated. So through this planning grant, we're going to explore the possibilities for partnership. We're going to learn from colleges and Head Start programs that have partnered successfully. We are going to learn from those who've tried this before and been unsuccessful for whatever reasons, to learn from that as well. We're going to create a plan for matchmaking moving forward between community colleges and Head Start programs, and then also develop a bunch of resources that go along with identifying who's ready to partner and then supporting them throughout the process. Everything from draft MOUs to guidance to an explanation of what in the world is Head Start and what in the world is a community college and how do we work together. And so our plan is for the planning grant to get that done and then be able to move forward to actually doing this matchmaking for several years ahead.
Thanks, Victoria. If I could just add, so essentially we're trying to create a playbook, and it could be everything from who are we supposed to talk to in each other's organizations? Is there any role for local government in this process? What other stakeholders need to be engaged? And as Victoria mentioned, it's guides for estimating retrofit costs. We'll talk a little bit more about cost analysis later, but all of those things are going to be informed through surveys with existing partnerships, other partnership experts, interviews with administration agencies, focus groups, Head Start centers, student parents, because we do think that it is very important to have that student voice. To be able to design a program, we need to talk to the people that are impacted by it. We're going to look at potential data collection in the future. And I think once we have this playbook, the next step, as Victoria mentioned, is a longer term project so we can actually hit the ground running and implement this playbook, for the technical assistance. And where our goal, our initial goal, would be at least 50 Head Starts with community colleges. And so that we're hoping to have a 5-year project. But I think that's going to evolve as we move through this planning grant to kind of see what is actually entailed.
And I'm just really thrilled to be a part of watching it all unravel. And I think I was especially excited about the student parent voice component that you're learning not only from the colleges and from the Head Start centers themselves, but those who you are attempting to serve. And with that, Stephanie, we just heard some pretty clear benefits, some pretty clear data that childcare access is a strategy in supporting student parents. And as a student parent yourself, could you just speak a little bit about your journey in your education and the role that childcare has played? I know you mentioned your 2-year-old started at early Head Start at 8 months old.
Yes, she did. She's been in Head Start since she was 8 months, and I've seen a lot of improvement in her self-help skills, language skills. She's, especially with her interaction with other children, I feel like if she was just with me, she was not enrolled in a Head Start, and maybe things would have been different as her age right now. But it also built a lot of confidence on her because she likes to explore outdoor things or she likes to learn new things. So I've seen a lot of improvement in all those domains. It's amazing the way Head Start really helps children,
Definitely, it's very much high quality. And the fact that it was on your community college campus was, yes. What was the catalyst? Is that the reason you were able to go to school? What was your?
Yes, I feel like it plays a big role because if it was not school-based, maybe I would be overwhelmed with homework, work, being able to study, having the time to make time for me to study and stuff. And also I feel like played a big role because it helped me continue with my studies. Maybe if I didn't have childcare, like it would be a little bit more difficult, or I would probably, take a break from school because, I didn't have childcare, but it helped me a lot. So.
And you haven't taken a break. You're going to graduate this.
Yes.
Very congratulations. I know I had my children at on-campus childcare, and I know a big component of that too was we got to go to school together. They got exposed to the college atmosphere. Transportation wasn't as big of an issue. So I know we talked about that on our phone call yesterday. So Steve, for you, one of the learnings of the Single Mother Student Success Initiative at ECMC Foundation, one of the many learnings as a learning organization, it's just childcare is a basic need for student parents and for single moms. Can you just speak a little bit about how removing this barrier is going to increase the success of student parents?
Sure, I'd be happy to. And so it's interesting. When I first got into the workforce development space, it was, the focus was that, as people like to refer to it, the train and pray model, which is essentially fund the tuition, fund the fees, get the person in the class, and then pray that they'll finish and do well and graduate and become employed. I think what we're seeing now is there's pretty widespread recognition that that's not a viable model anymore for everyone. I think these comprehensive interventions and these comprehensive training programs that you're seeing that incorporate a lot of these student support services, childcare being one of them, leads to better success rates. And there's a lot of examples out there in the research world. So I think, even though this is only one piece of that intervention, I do think it is a major piece. And so I think it's, and I know I was at a community college prior to ACCT, and it's a huge lift for an institution. And I think that it can be intimidating. It's very expensive, but I think just taking this initial step can be a very good sustainable place to start. And an example of that is Monroe Community College in New York found that students who had children under the age of 6 who used the college's on-campus childcare center were 18% more likely to return to school the next year rather than the students who did not use the center. And they were actually nearly 3 times more likely to graduate. And while our focus is on the student, where it has a broader impact. It has an institutional impact. It can be looked at as, when we talk about enrollment challenges at the institutions, you're looking at, it's more than just new students. It's easier to keep the students that you already have than to go get new ones. So if we can keep the students successful on campus, complete them, retain them and complete them, it's going to actually benefit more than just that student, although, our primary focus is the student. So I think removing this main barrier, and this is like everyone has said, it's a very natural fit. So I think it's a great place to start.
Yeah, thank you for that. And shout out to Marianne DeMario at Monroe Community College for her research. They were selected under the Education Design Lab grant for the Single Mother Student Success Challenge, and a grantee of ECMC Foundation. So I love that that's your college you just referenced. Victoria, how does eligibility and Head Start requirements play into this? How are we going to kind of break down some of those silos?
Yeah, that is an excellent question, and one I even saw already come up in the Q&A. So definitely glad to have a chance to talk about it, especially because the Head Start eligibility requirements are not super well known outside of Head Start. Head Start has pretty strict eligibility guidelines, specifically to ensure that this program is available to the most vulnerable children and families in the country. The main category of eligibility is those families living below the poverty line, but also a couple other categories such as families experiencing homelessness, children in the foster care system, and those receiving social benefits. And so a really big, exciting thing, kind of clarification we got in the last year was that families receiving SNAP, so Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, or kind of what used to be known as food stamps, are included in that kind of social benefits and eligible for Head Start. But we know that, and we do know that a significant portion of community college students with children under 6 are already eligible for Head Start under the poverty guidelines, but not all of them for sure. And in particular, childcare centers on college campuses often serve faculty as well, who are less likely to be eligible. So through this planning grant, we're really going to explore some existing models of blending and braiding, essentially kind of combining funds from various sources to reach various populations and meet the needs of disparate populations. And, this includes everything from federal Head Start dollars to state Head Start funding, state and local pre-K contributions, and even kind of family pay methods. There are some programs that do that really well right now. There are some that are trying to figure out what those pieces are. And so we're hoping to learn that and include it kind of in the resources and pieces that we bring to the table to meet the needs of each individual partnership that we start to create.
Thank you. And I know since the launch of this grant, we've had lots of interest from policymakers and have had lots of calls with different departments with sprinkles of like policy change of how could we leverage financial aid, income eligibility with Head Start for these campuses. And I think one of the things that you guys are going to be doing so well in this kind of planning grant is trying to debunk these policies for both the community college administrators as well as the Head Start providers. So Stephanie, with that, and not as an intimidating thing, we all put our pants on the same way, if you wear pants, is, you have all these people on this call. You have funders, you have practitioners, you maybe have some of your San Antonio College administrators on this call. What do you want them to know? I know we talked yesterday and you mentioned even before becoming a single mom to your 2-year-old that you care for your younger brother and that caretaking responsibilities are a big part of who you are and was a part of your student role and what took you a minute to enroll. So, what are we missing? If there's anyone here on this call that's looking to support student parents on their campus, what would you like them to know?
The Head Start college-based early Head Start really, it's a big impact for student parents. It really does make a big difference in being school-based. Number one, transportation, because it's way more easier to have access, like it's right there, school-based, and yeah, it really plays a big role. So
would you say there's anything, let's take away Head Start and community college, just your general everyday as a student parent, what are some of the other challenges, or what are things that were working well at the college that maybe don't have to do with childcare? I know for me, one of my biggest things when I was a student parent was kind of like isolation. I didn't have like an identity. I didn't see other student parents, and the childcare center and the family resource center that I was able to get services from was a place that I got to feel seen and valid and that I belonged there. What are some of the other things?
Yes, well, they do meetings, so parents speech really, they really care for what parents, their opinion, and they're always asking, what things we could do better, what are y'all's needs, they provide everything for us. So far, I'm okay with what they have. So I can't think right now from the top of my head, but
that's amazing. They're fulfilling that need for you and feeling like a part of a community, that social capital that you need. That's wonderful.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you for sharing. To piggyback off of that, thinking about who's on this call, a challenge that's often brought up by colleges, I think, in an opposition maybe, or just unsure of what this partnership could be, is that childcare is cost prohibitive. And to manage a center on a community college campus is, it's difficult. And so can you speak a little bit how this project would help with that? And then to continue to see opportunities to solve this issue, both to Victoria, Steve.
Sure. And I think before we get to talk about everyone's favorite subject, money, we actually put together a little bit of poll. We mentioned earlier that we are looking at one way to gather this information is through focus groups and engagement from individuals like that are on this call. So If you could take it, it's a 3-question poll. It'll take a few seconds. If you wouldn't mind answering this, we're going to keep it anonymous, but we will share out some information later around the results. So I don't know if we should play the Jeopardy theme while we do this for a few minutes. I don't know. And while people are answering, I think one of the nice things about this partnership is the fact that some of the areas that are cost prohibitive for an institution, Head Start actually has a bit of a solution for that. So we'll get into that initial explanation in just here in a minute. I am very happy with the Desire partnership results and the level of engagement. This is exciting. Well, while people are finishing up, I think we can go ahead and start answering that question. So I don't know, Victoria, if you want to start. One of the things, one of the challenges is funding these, retrofitting the center. Like I mentioned before, I was at a community college, and that was a big challenge. It's, the cost of renovating space, and where does that funding come from? So if you wouldn't mind starting off by talking maybe how Head Start has an opportunity for that.
Yeah, absolutely. And the simple answer is that there is funding built into Head Start grants to cover space and retrofitting, and sometimes buying new buildings, sometimes paying rent. There are a lot of things when you think about a childcare center that require different things than most buildings kind of have, even if they are up to code for most buildings when it comes to little kids, and playgrounds and food and classrooms and all those things. So it's within the funding capabilities of Head Start programs, and obviously there's some financial pieces to pay attention to, but also the possibility for getting free space for many years. If you could, be paying up front for the retrofitting of that building, there's a lot of possibilities here. And we know that it's a limitation on the community college side. And so it's a benefit that we're kind of able going into it to know that that's available.
And I think that brings up a really good point. So just so everyone is clear, this project is not designed to create community colleges as new Head Start partners or grantees. What they are doing is serving as a landlord. And there is a reason for that. It's because as part of the Head Start funding, there has to be a 20% philanthropic match. And so a lot of times Head Starts will meet that philanthropic match through space allocation for free or extremely inexpensive. And so if they can't do that, it's hard for them to meet that match. Therefore, they have a challenge operating. And please, Victoria, add anything around that if you need to. But I think, I think that is a way to sort of solve a couple of different major issues. Once that Head Start is located on campus, I think, and we all know post-pandemic, there's a lot of vacant spaces on campuses. And I know one of the metrics that goes into things like new capital fund requests with community colleges is space utilization. So if a campus is not using its buildings, they're not going to get any more money to build new ones. So, or to retrofit other spaces. So having a solution to how can we use all of our spaces on campus effectively can actually help with future projects. The other thing is the Head Start doesn't have to be the only child care facility on campus. That can be the anchor. So we mentioned one of the big hurdles is the retrofitting the well-known tiny toilet issue. And once that retrofit occurs, we have Head Start classrooms, but that does not mean that you cannot have additional types of child care classrooms that are funded through other funding streams. Victoria mentioned, SNAP, we have childcare scholarships in a lot of states. We have full pay students, creating a childcare ecosystem with Head Start as an anchor can really be a creative way to solve both the cost issue of coming onto campus, but then also providing childcare services for the widest variety of your students.
Yes, thank you for that. I think there were some questions that were in the chat too that you just addressed, both in terms of, not replacing C-Campus funding, for instance, which was one of them, but that how we can leverage and braid these opportunities and what that looks like as a landlord for the community college. And I think, we have a couple more minutes of time. I'll ask one more question that came up in the Q&A just around, the workforce shortage, and how this project can potentially increase the workforce pipeline and the support of having this center on a community college campus, what that would look like for Head Start.
Yeah, and this is a huge problem that NHSA is looking at for Head Start, but we also know it's huge across the entire childcare and early childhood field. It's not Head Start specific. We know that this isn't going to be a cure-all for the entire workforce shortage. There's a lot going on there. We do think there's some potential to help, just when you think about students who are studying early childhood and need to do practicum or need to get some in-classroom training. There's some real opportunities. We also think that there's some opportunity around multi-generational families. And there's a lot of roles in Head Start programs. It's not just teachers, bus drivers, food service prep, the building managers, kind of front desk managers, all of those roles that, when you're looking at families, we can say, hey, if mom's coming to school, taking college classes and kiddo is coming to Head Start, is there anybody else in your home who wants to jump on the bus or jump in the car with them? And here is a job. We're hoping that that's a help, but we know that it is absolutely not going to solve the entire workforce crisis in early childhood.
I think that's a great point. And I think most, if not all, college campuses already have early childhood education training programs, all the way from usually what would be considered, a Head Start aid. So that initial credential in early childhood, and then they move into the associate degree level, and then also have a lot of scholarship opportunities to the bachelor degree level. So all of these pieces align with the requirements of Head Start teachers. And I can tell you that having that built-in career pathway, Victoria mentioned internship sites. She mentioned there's several early childhood apprenticeship programs that are becoming more prevalent. I live in Maryland. Maryland just announced yesterday, I think, $23 million for new early childhood education communities. And that includes, training pipelines. It includes, funding for, a variety of different regulatory, upskilling, those types of things. So I think there is a huge win-win when you're talking about not only, and I believe, Stephanie, your early childhood, so you're like the prime example of this. So I think there's a lot of, there's just a natural synergy between having a place for the students to learn, and it could be a good first job for the, a graduate to work in the on-campus childcare center, and then, either continue to work there and move off, or serve as a mentor for other students. So, I mean, it's almost too good. I don't want to get ahead of myself, but it's almost too good. So.
Well, time is definitely now. And to your point, Steve, Stephanie and I were talking yesterday on the phone. We were just kind of getting to know each other and talking about how similar our journeys are, just in different periods of time. I was an early childhood major, and I got my ECE degree from Los Angeles Valley College. Did an internship at an on-campus childcare center. Learned I didn't love working with the kids so much, but I liked working with the parents. Changed to family studies and then supported student parents, and now get to support single mother student success at ECMC Foundation. And I want to say, and then I would love for you all to let folks know how they can stay in touch before we hand it over. That one of the things that I kept thinking about here was I've long been saying that the reason that I'm here is because I had on-campus childcare. at my community college specifically before transferring. And my old boss at the time at the Family Resource Center at Los Angeles Valley College, Marty Roosevelt, said, you know, Amber, you're really resilient. You would have figured it out. You would have found a head start in the community. And I kind of just like laughed it off. I thought, you know, she is right. Like, I'm pretty resilient. But I then later reflected that I didn't have that resiliency. I didn't have that wherewithal to figure those things out until I got an education. Like, I wouldn't have had my foot in the door had it not been for having that available to me. And, you know, these benefits, Therese, that you just spoke about, like my kids now, like it's what are you going to do in college, not if you're going to go. And Stephanie, you said that too. These are the main motivators that we have as women, as mothers, as parents. And so I thank you so much for your time and your expertise and your passion for doing this project. And, you know, with that, last but not least, how can folks, you know, that are online that want to stay engaged with this project do so?
Sure. And just before I say that, you know, when you mentioned having to maybe find another solution that wasn't on campus, that's having to solve for another barrier. So now you have to add complexity to your situation. And so I think, you know, I mentioned it's one barrier, but it's an important one. So making it as simple as possible for the student is what we're trying to do. So we did the poll, the quick poll. Thank you for participating in that. So how you can stay in touch with us, there is a QR code on the screen. There's also a link to the website. There is a way to sign up to stay engaged, and there's a couple of questions on that web form that will give us a better idea of you know, how you would like to stay engaged. We will be sending out a link of the recording with more information around some other ways to become engaged early next week. So our email, our contact information is up there as well. Sean Robbins is our project associate here at ACCT, who is very involved with this as well. So feel free to reach out to any one of us, Victoria with NHSA. But I just want to say thank you guys so much for your participation. And I believe Jihang is going to close us out, or?
Yes. Oh.
There he is. Surprise.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. I guess the West Coast is still morning. I'm Jihang Lee, President and CEO of the Association of Community College Trustees. On behalf of the ACCT and the National Head Start Association, I want to thank the ECMC Foundation and the Selden Herring Smith Foundation for their support for this planning grant. We believe that these partnerships are critical these partnerships are mutually beneficial to colleges and Head Start sites. This partnership will allow our colleges additional opportunities to re-engage childcare options, especially as we come out of the pandemic. And some of our colleges have collapsed some of our childcare opportunities. This panel discussion, as many of you just listened to, the stories that was described by Amber and Stephanie, really showcase this enormous opportunity that is open to all of us to support our students. Our students are in desperate need of these services and will benefit enormously from having them. As was mentioned earlier, childcare is critical for student success, most importantly, and we should be considering this a basic need. We also briefly listened to the 2-gen strategy, and this is also a critical component of our work going forward, as research has shown the positive benefits of Head Start centers on children. And we also, one of the things that community colleges really do and focus on is we work on supporting efforts to eradicate poverty. And this is obviously a major initiative of ours to support student parents. And this is one of the things we always talk about. And one of our themes for our last Congress was supporting whole families. And we believe supporting whole families is eradicating poverty for all families. I do want to acknowledge that this project has generated wide interest since this announcement. And thank you for all those of you who signed in today. We've heard from 8 federal agencies and a number of congressional offices. So the interest is high from our policymaker friends. And it does validate the idea of connecting community colleges and Head Start centers But this can also happen without our friends at the federal policy level. But we hope to learn ways that Congress and the administration can help make it move forward. We hope that colleges and Head Start centers on this call that are interested in learning more can help us develop this work, including volunteering their time to participate in our focus groups, as Steve just mentioned. Please reach out to our colleagues in the chat. I think we just put some information on there and with our contact information. And I think I'm going to have Carrie close us out.
Thank you, Jihang, and thank you again to everyone who joined today, and particularly to our speakers, especially Stephanie, who has a very busy schedule and was able to join and share with us today. Personally, on the back end here, that's one of the most robust Q&As I've tried to field during a webinar. So it was really thrilling to see all of the engagement and all of the interest. As you see, the URL on the slide, if you go to our landing page for the project, and scroll down, there's a big blue sign up to engage with us button. I really encourage you to use that or to reach out to Victoria, Sean, and Steve on the next steps, and particularly if you want to participate in the focus groups. And it's important for the focus groups that we have community colleges and Head Start sites who have both done this and who are interested but have not yet done this, as we really want to hear from folks in both positions. So I saw a couple that said, oh, we already do this. Can we still be involved? Yes, we really need to hear from you on your experiences. And then just finally, anyone who registered, whether they were able to join with us live today or not, will receive a follow-up email with materials and the recording, and we will also make the recording publicly available so that others who are interested are able to watch it in the future. So again, thank you to everyone for your time and interest, and we look forward to staying in touch with you. Have a good day.